Okay, so good morning. We are finishing up today Masechet Yevamot. So exciting, and looking forward to our siyum this evening. All are welcome. We'll begin around 7:15 at the RJC. We'll finish it around 8:15, so that if you want to come back to HIR, you can do so. In any event, very, very wonderful to have learned so much of this with all of you, and looking forward to beginning anew. It's really exciting. The wonderful thing about the daf is that every day is a new adventure. So we are at the two dots at the bottom of Kuf Chaf Aleph Amud Bet 121b. And yesterday we learned in a Mishnah the statement of Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, who said that we only believe a non-Jew regarding the death of a husband when his intention is not to testify. So if in fact he's trying to testify, and we'll have to define what that means. In fact, we'll offer two explanations in a second. But if he's trying to testify, then we say that that is not a valid testimony by a non-Jew. So we offer two explanations for what that could mean. One is we believe the non-Jew as long as he doesn't specify why he is testifying. So he's just stating the facts. If the only thing that's relevant to him, or that appears relevant to him, is the underlying truth of what he's saying, then we will believe him. That is not, in fact, how we paskin. We paskin the second opinion, which is that it has to be lefi tumo, that he has to actually say it in a way that indicates, in a way, that he has to say it in a way that is innocent. Not even if he's in court and he knows that in fact he's testifying, that rather we only believe the non-Jew if he is talking in total innocence, meaning just to inform someone outside the context of Beit Din. Once we get into what do you know, what's the story, how do you know, etc. Once we get into that kind of detail with them, with a non-Jew, then that's going to be problematic. And now we're going to, and we are currently in a series of stories associated with this, and we pick things up again at the two dots on the bottom. And we're going to tell, the first is the case of threatening a non-Jew, threatening a Jew, and then we're going to deal with three other stories that don't involve any threats, just simply information. And we'll see that when the non-Jew is threatening, we won't believe him. But when the non-Jew is just speaking, so then we will believe him. So let's take a look. There was this non-Jew who was telling a Jew, Kitol aspasta ushdei lechevai b'shabsa. Please, he didn't say please, cut down my grain, my early grain. Rashi explains that aspasta is kitsos shichetz lebehemu musei, that it's the cuttings that are specifically for the animal, because you don't need them to have fully matured. And then, and if you do that, or then the elo, and if you don't do that, katilna lach, I'm going to kill you, because just as I killed John Doe, this other Jew, to Umrile, because I told him, I told him, cook me something on Shabbos, below Bashali, say, and then he didn't cook it for me, so I killed him. So Shama Devisu Asayla Kameh de Abaye. So the wife of the guy who is now missing, and was the one who the non-Jew said, I told him to cook for me, and when he didn't, I killed him. She comes to Abaye. Shehesa. So Abaye said, you got to wait, because I'm not sure of the answers, the implication, and in fact, Tlosa Regli. So as we turn to Kuf Chaf Bet Amud Aleph, the top words, Tlosa Regli, you have to wait. He had her wait three of the holidays. Why? Because as Rashi says at the top of Kuf Chaf Bet Amud Aleph, Shahayu Talmidei Chachamim Nikbatzim Lishmoa Drasha Halachos Pesach v'Pesach v'Haisa Shoel Shmeihem. Because he wanted to see when all the rabbis were going to get together and they'd be able to have a conversation and be able to see what we should do. So Amar la Rav Ada bar Ahava. So in one of these gatherings, so then obviously presumably the third of the gatherings, so the Rav Ada bar Ahava said to her, Zilka made the Rav Yosef. Go in front of Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef, I presumably this is Rav Yosef, who is the teacher of Abaye. So that might be one of the possibilities. Although the Rif and the Rush instead here put Rava because Rava is known from other places to be a particularly sharp knife, and the Charif Sakine, because his knife is sharp, meaning he's got the right intelligence to be able to answer you. Azla Kameh, so she went in front of presumably, either Rav Yosef or Rava, Pashat Me Ha Masnisa, and he answered her from the following Mishnah. If you have an idolater who is selling fruit in the marketplace, and he says that these fruit are orla. Now he doesn't actually say that their fruit are orla, but rather he says that these fruit are from a tree that within the first 3 years, and during the first 3 years of a tree, the fruit are prohibited. So, that's what he says. He says that these are true from a brand new tree. That's what he says. Or shel azeka, or he says that they're from azeka. Rashi offers two different explanations at two different points in during the Rashi, so we won't go through it. It's a little confusing. The simplest way for Rashi is the fact that Azeka is a city in Eretz Yisrael, and so as a result, he's saying that, and he's presumably outside of Eretz Yisrael, and he's saying that these fruit are from somewhere where it turns out that it actually would be from Israel, and we would need to be worried about Trumas and Maasros, even though right now he is standing outside of Israel. Or Shalnata Rivoy, or he says that they're from the 4th year of the a plant, because the 4th year, the first 3 years are orla, the 4th year is neta revi, which has the same halachot of ma'aser sheni, which means that you have to bring it to Yerushalayim in order to eat it, and so the Brisa concludes lo amar klum. The non-Jew has not said anything. Lo niskaven elo hashpiach mikacho, because all he's trying to do is pop up his own things, so we are not going to believe him. What's the connection to our story? That presumably that he was puffing up his own strength and terror and ability to cause terror by saying that he had killed the guy, when in fact he had just known that the guy was missing, and so as a result he utilized the fact that the guy was missing. It had nothing to do with whether or not he was.
Usually if somebody says a declaration against interest, we tend to believe it, right?
Right, but you're absolutely right, but we're assuming that the guy does not know that this is a declaration against interest. That's the key. We think that he is doing this for his own interest. You're exactly right. And that the reason that he's doing it is because the young fruit are going to sell better, or the fruit from Israel are going to sell better. You can imagine somebody not very intelligent, even in the United States, coming to a Jewish community and bringing a whole bunch of apples and saying, these apples are all from Israel, so you Jews should absolutely buy them, not realizing that, of course, if the fruit are from apples, they actually need a hashgacha. So anyway, so that's the idea that we're trying to convey here.
But he's doing it in Israel. You would think that he would know.
No, that we're assuming that he's not in Israel, at least Rashi assumes with respect to the Azeka one, that he's not doing it in Israel. But so that's the assumption. The assumption is, and you can question the assumption, but if you question the assumption, then you're absolutely right that the underlying situation may, in the end, the sack may be different. But the assumption is that in all of these cases, he is speaking with interest, not against his interest, and he's trying to puff up his product. And so as a result, you can't necessarily believe him. And so too, unfortunately, we don't believe the guy who says that I killed the so-and-so, even though that would have enabled the wife to remarry. So it's a little bit, on some ways it's a shame, because we said that the Rav Yosef or Rava was a sharp knife, but apparently he's a sharp knife that it unfortunately can cut against the person as well. It's not only positive. Exactly. All right. Well, now we'll have 3 other stories, three quick stories in succession, if I remember correctly, and we'll deal with them all where we do believe the non-Jew. So Abba Yudin ish Sidon Hai Amar. So Abba Yudin from Sidon said, Masa be Yisrael ba'obikuchav mishahalchu b'derech. There were these two Jew and non-Jew. They were traveling on the road. You would travel with somebody for protection because you didn't want to be all by yourself. Uba obikuchavim ba'amar chaval Yehudi shahaya imi b'derech shemes b'derech ukvartiv. It's such a shame. I was walking with this guy and he died and I buried him along the road, and it's a very sad thing. And the rabbi said that his wife could remarry. And then there was another group where now that was the first one, was two people. Now we have a group of people, and they were all traveling to Antioch. And then, so we know that there was this group, and then a non-Jew comes and he says, Chaval al kolar shel bnei adam shemezu ukfartim. What a shame about this group. They were all killed, and I buried them. So again, we allow the wives to remarry because there was no interest in him saying it. He had to say, he was just saying what had happened and not saying anything that would be in his own interest. There was a whole group of 60 people who were traveling, and you could see that we're increasing the numbers. One was one person, then was a group. Now it's 60 whole people. What a shame that I killed, that they all died and I buried them. And all of their wives were allowed to remarry. So it didn't make a difference whether you were dealing with one, a few, or a lot. If they came and said the Rambam actually apparently says that the burying piece of this is important. That it's not just that they died, but in fact that I buried them. That emphasizes the truth of what was being said. Okay, so those are three series of statements, and now our next mission is going to highlight the different circumstances where we still believe that a woman's husband died. So a couple of odd circumstances. So let's take a look and see what they are. So again, we're at the Mishnah near the and then thin lines on Kufchaf Bet Amud Al. So me'idin le'or haner u'le'or halavana. You're allowed to testify even if you didn't have a lot of light to identify the person, whether it's a lamp or a moon, whatever it is that enabled you to be able to see the deceased. That is sufficient. We don't say that you have to have seen the person during the daytime, even though the only thing that you have to go on, you can't recognize their actions. You can only recognize them by what you see of their face and body. So yes, go ahead.
Talking about a criminal case here or something, or Beit Din?
No. We're still sticking with a woman's husband is missing. And the question is can we accept testimony that the husband has died? So those are the basic facts that we're trying to understand. And we say that even though the person only saw it at night, that is still sufficient. This is a crazy one, right? That you can even go based on a baskel. Now, ordinarily, a baskel means a voice from heaven. But we're going to see that here we just mean a voice whose source we don't know, other than we're pretty confident that it's a human voice.
Not hearsay.
Not hearsay. Well, it may be hearsay. You'll see that it absolutely is hearsay. So let's hear the hearsay. So Masa be'echad she'amad al rosh ha'ar. There was this guy who was standing on top of a mountain. V'amar, and he said, Ish ploni ben ploni b'magam ploni meis. That this person, who's the son of the other person, who was from this place, gave all those details. Unfortunately, that person has died. So So they run up to the top of the mountain to ask the guy, what exactly happened? How did he die? Whatever they wanted to, thank you for letting us know. Whatever it is, they see you as Isho. I'm sorry. Hoku below Matsu Sham Adam. But they run up there, but they don't find anybody up there. Nonetheless, they let the woman remarry. It's an interesting thing because now essentially all you need to do to have a woman remarry is get some guy to go up to the town of the mountain and say that his wife there. But the idea is that again, we assume that people aren't ordinarily going to lie, but at the same time, we recognize that when there's certain amounts of animosity, then we might be worried. Anyway, the show.
They would have to do yibum if they didn't have children. And
Yes, correct. Absolutely, they would have to do yibum. Whatever the point is that she could remarry either a new husband from the shuk if they had children, or her brother if they didn't have children, or somebody from the marketplace again if they didn't have children, but the husband had no brothers. All right, Veshuv Ma'aseh b'Talmud. There was another situation that happened in Talmud. Be'echad she'amar ani ish ploni ben ish ploni l'shachani nachash v'harei ani meit. A person calls out from on top of the mountain, "Oh my gosh, unfortunately I've been bitten by a snake. I'm about to die. Please let everybody know that I'm about to die." V'holchu v'lo ikiru, and they go and they don't recognize him. Meaning, by the time they find his body, presumably he had decomposed sufficiently or had bloated so that you could not tell who it was. But they trust the fact of what he said enough to enable his wife to remarry. All right, so now that we've had those cases, so now we're going to have, it seemed like we didn't have any disagreement in our Mishnah, but in fact, there is a disagreement that we should know about. So, Amar Rabba Bar Shmuel Tana Beis Shammai Omrim Ein Masiyin Al Pi Paschal. We actually don't trust this the unembodied voice. Beis Hillel Omrim Masiyin Al Pi Paschal. But Beis Hillel says no. We allow a woman to remarry based on this voice. So, my Kamashmalan. Why do I need you to tell me about this model? We all know that when we paskin like Beis Hillel, and our Mishnah is clearly like Beis Hillel. So Masnisani, it's our Mishnah. Why did you bother to tell us about this machlokas? So Hakamashmalan, this is what the Gemara is coming to tell us. Because if you happen to find a statement somewhere in the Talmud or in any of the associated texts with the Talmud, if you find such a statement, you should know that that's not Beis Hillel, it's Beis Shammai, and as a result, even if it is a stam, often we say a stam brisa, stam mishnah, that the halacha is like that. So you should know that is not in fact a statement of the halacha, but rather it's a statement of Beis Shammai. All right, now we'll get, yes, go ahead.
Only time that the bot call refers to just a human voice?
This, to my knowledge, yes. I'm obviously, I've not been through all of Shas yet, but I don't remember any other situation yet where it's definitely an oddity in that regard. It's definitely relatively unique. So if it's the only, I'm not sure, but it's certainly a rarity. Absolutely. And it's worthy of note exactly for that point. Exactly. So now they go up, they hear the bas kol, and they go up to the top of the mountain, and they didn't find anybody. The Dilma Shade Haba. So the Gemara asks, 1 second, maybe the Gemara has a sense of demonhood and recognizes that demons may exist. And so as a result, how do we know that in fact it's a human? Maybe it's a demon. So Amar Yehuda Amar Rav, Shiro lo demus adam. It appeared you could see on the top of the mountain that there was a human form there. So the Gemara asks, Inhu nami dama. 1 second, demons can take human form. The Chazule bevua. 1 second, but it had a shadow. And we all know, that these kind of creatures of the night have no shadow. No, but Inhu nami islu bevua. Maybe it also had a shadow. The Chazule bevua b'debavua. No. It was early in the morning. I meant to even check this, but I've never noticed this. But apparently, there's in the early morning hours, you actually cast 2 shadows, a lighter shadow and a darker shadow. A lighter shadow that's more at a distance, and a darker shadow that's closer up. Because the light, you have sort of like a double effect of the light. The sun is low down, but you also have like the reflection maybe of the clouds. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but in any event, the idea is that you may have 2 shadows at certain points in the day, and this creature only had one, and a shade would only potentially have one. The maybe a shade a demon could have a shadow of a shadow. Well, Amar Rabbi Chanina comes and tells us, Amar li Yonasan Shida bevua islahu bevua de bevua leislahu. That this fellow Yonasan Shida, and let's take a look at Rashi. It's Rashi just opposite the two dots in the Gemara that are about 4 lines down in the wide lines of the Gemara. On the right-hand side, we'll see Limdane Yonasan Shida, Shade Haya O Baki Behen. So he was either, the guy was called Yonasan Shida because in fact he was a friend of Rabbi Chanina who happened to be a demon and had conversations with him, or he just was an expert on demons. And he is the one who is the source of this statement. But he said that the demons have a regular shadow, but they don't have the special shadow that would exist in the morning and in the evening. The let's take it. So you want to say that we know that it's a human being. But what about the fact that there are certain human beings who we won't believe? So, for example, if Reuven is married to Rachel and Leah, so if Rachel testifies about Reuven's death, we'll believe it with respect to Rachel, but we won't believe it with respect to Leah because we're worried that Rachel is trying to mess Leah up. And so as a result, we'll only believe her with respect to herself and not with respect to the co-wife. So for Dilma, so as a result, 1 second, maybe it's a co-wife. And as a result, she's just trying to trick her co-wife into marrying somebody else and then becoming prohibited, right? So what's the reason that you would imagine that the co-wife would do that, right? The co-wife would do it because if Leah makes the statement and now Rachel goes out and marries somebody else, well then when the husband comes back, when Reuven comes back, now Leah has the husband all to herself because Rachel has married somebody else and it's gone and she can't go back to her first husband. So anyway, so that's the idea. So why don't we worry about that, right? We seem to be worrying about all sorts of things. So Tana Debe Rabbi Yishmael, we have a brayta taught in the name of in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael, Vishas HaSakana, that in times of danger, that we will write a debt for somebody even if we don't recognize the person. So because we're worried about the situation and we want to enable women to be freed and not have to worry about where their husband is. And so if in fact we're worried about a man who is missing, that a man will go missing and will allow a man to create a divorce document without actually knowing who he is, well, then certainly when it comes to enabling the wife to remarry, we will believe that it is that will allow that testimony even so. And so the idea is just as we don't worry about the Sarah coming in that situation and saying, write me again, we also won't worry about it in this situation. So that's the proof that in fact we don't actually worry. So we will believe this unembodied voice that as long as we have some knowledge that in fact there is a human behind it. So that's the story with the unembodied voice. Okay, so now our next Mishnah tells the story of Rabbi Akiva and Nehemiah of Beit Deli, which we went through on Daf Kuf Tet Vav Amud Aleph. And this was the story where Rabbi Akiva goes to Chutz La'aretz. And so let's take a look and we'll see it inside. So Amar Rabbi Akiva Kishiyarati Lenarda La Ber Hashana. So I went to Narda to set up the leap year. Matsasi Nehemiah Ish Beis Deli. I happened to meet Nehemiah from Beis Deli. Amarli, he said to me, Shamati she'ein mesianes ha'isha be'eretz Yisrael al pied achad. I have heard a rumor. Well, it didn't say rumor here, but anyway, I've heard that people are not allowing a woman to marry based on the testimony of a single witness. Ella Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba. It was the exception of Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba. He's the only guy. The tent there in Masoras HaShas as Rebbe Yehuda, to make it clear that who we're talking about. So Rebbe Yehuda ben Bava was the only one. Lo, and so Rabbi Akiva says, I said back to him, Kena Dvarim, that's in fact correct. So Amarli, Nehemiah then said to me, and more lahem mishmi, go tell the rabbis in my name, Atem yodim shahamedina mishubeshes b'goyesus. You know that this country that I'm in is very dangerous to travel in, so I'm unable to travel to you. And again, when we brought this on Kuftet Amud Aleph, we thought that maybe he himself, we thought that he was trying to highlight that we only believe people in times of danger, or that we will believe certain situations when places are at war. But that was not in fact, he was really actually explaining why he himself was unable to travel. So he says, I'm not able to travel to Israel. But I have a tradition I've received from Rabbi Gamliel the elder, who was the head Rish Galusa, that we specifically do allow a woman to remarry based on the testimony of one witness. And so Ukshabati. So now Rabbi Akiva continues his story because Shabbati v'Yertzesi advarim l'fnei Rabbi Gamliel. So I went and told the current generation of Rabbi Gamliel, who was the Rabbi Gamliel Hazakin's grandson. So he said, what did he say? Samach l'dvarai v'amar. He was so happy to hear what I shared with him because Matzanu chaver l'Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, because now we found a second source for Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, mitoch hadavar nizka Rabbi Gamliel, and as a result of my having shared this all with Rabbi Gamliel, he remembered something. Shenergu harugim betel arza. He had heard that when he was young, presumably, that these people had been killed, these men had been killed in Tel Arza. V'hisi Rabbi Gamliel nishoseim al pied echad. And my grandfather, Rabbi Gamliel the Zaken, he permitted their wives to marry based on the testimony of a single witness. And then, and as a result of that action, that is what established. Oh, I'm sorry. I think actually it's more based on this story. And so, as a result of this story with Rabbi Akiva coming back and telling what Nehemiah of Beis Dali had told him. So as a result, that is why we reestablished the rule that a single witness would enable a woman to get remarried. And they said that not only will we accept one witness, but other versions of witnesses that are not approvable from the Torah, we will accept their testimony as well. So, for example, we'll accept a witness telling us what another witness said. As we have in English law, the law of hearsay, this is the Jewish version. Ordinarily, you cannot testify I can't testify about what you saw based on what you told me. And so as a result, however, when it comes to the death of a woman, in order to enable her to get remarried, you can. Exactly. And we'll accept it. Exactly. And not only that, Mipi Ebed will accept a slave. Mipi Isha will accept a woman as the witness. Mipi Shivcha will accept the testimony of a female servant. So Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Yeshua disagree. They say, you cannot allow a woman to remarry based on one witness. Rabbi Akiva Omer, lo al pi Isha, v'lo al pi Eved, v'lo al pi Shivcha, v'lo al pi Krovim. Now, Rabbi Akiva says no. We might allow a single witness, but it's got to be a valid witness. So that means no women, no servants, no slaves, no maidservants, not even relatives. Presumably no minor as well. It's interesting this doesn't actually say a minor, but the question is does he have sufficient das? It would be an interesting question whether a minor would be a valid witness. A very interesting point. And in fact, one would think that the answer would be yes, because I think it was yesterday that we had the story about the children, and we asked, do we worry about whether or not they were actually talking about the burial of their pet grasshopper. And we said that they gave additional details that made it clear that they weren't talking about a pet cemetery visit, but rather a human cemetery visit. So I would think that the answer would be yes, but I have not gone through the details of the halacha on this issue. So, okay, so now the Gemara says, questions whether Rabbi Akiva really, because at the end of this, right, Rabbi Akiva at the very end says he doesn't accept the testimony of a woman. So is that really true? V'sava Rabbi Akiva al pi isha lo. 1 second, Bahatanya, we got a brisa that says exactly the opposite. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Omer Mishum Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said in the name of Rabbi Akiva, Isha ne'emenes lahavi gita mikal v'chomer, that we allow a woman to bring her own get as evidence of her being divorced based on the Kal V'chomer. That if you know that there are certain women that we will not accept as to testify about a woman's husband having died. So and yet we trust them to bring their bills of divorce. A regular woman who is believed to bring a who is trusted about her husband having died. Meaning, if again, Reuben's married to Rachel and Leah. Leah testifies that the husband died. We don't believe it for Rachel. If Leah testifies and gives us the get that Reuben gave to Rachel, well, then we will believe the get. So all the more so, we should believe her when she brings her own get. So, but the bottom line is we said, Nashim Sha'amru Chachamim, that it's only certain women, these 5 categories: the mother-in-law, the daughter-in-law, the sister, the co-wife, the sister, etc. Those are the ones that we don't believe. But Isha Ba'alma Mehenna, but an ordinary wife, an ordinary woman, is believed. So lo kasha kan kodem shechaziko, kan la'achar shechaziko. So when we said that Rabbi Akiva at the end of our Mishnah that he does not accept the witness, that was before the story with Nehemiah. That once Rabbi Akiva had that story with Nehemiah, he changed his opinion. So now he accepts a single woman as a witness. Okay, so that brings us to the Mishnah at the bottom of Kuf Chaf Bet Amud Aleph. Okay, so the next Mishnah now contains a challenge to Rabbi Akiva's original position. So again, it's the position where Rabbi Akiva says one witness is not sufficient if the witness is not a valid witness. So Amrulo, Masa Bivnei Levi, Shahalchu Litzoar Ir Hatmarim. There was a group involving some Leviim who traveled to Tzoar, the city of date palms. V'chola echad mehem, and one of them got sick. V'heviu b'fundak, and they brought him to an inn. And so presumably this inn was on the way. Right? So the point was they were going to Tzoar, and he got sick. They brought him to an inn and said, "Listen, buddy, we'll come back for you on our way home, and we'll pick you up." So v'chazarasam amru lepundadik to pundakit ayecha verehu. So they come back and they ask the innkeeper, who was a female innkeeper, and they say, "Where is he? What happened to him?" Exactly. So she says, "No meis lahem." She tells them, "Meis ukvartiv." He died and I buried him. And based on that, they allowed the wife to remarry. Below to hey kohenes befundakis. Now, shouldn't a kohenes, meaning obviously it's on some level it's much more than just the bas kohen, but shouldn't any Jew be trusted more than an innkeeper? So Amar Lahu, Rabbi Akiva said to them, but kapundakit ne'emenet kapundakit hotzia lahem maklo v'tarmilo v'sefer Torah shahaya biyada. It's a different situation because when we believe the innkeeper, it is not solely based on her word. What did she do? When they came back, she gave them back the guy's staff, the guy's pouch, the guy's Torah scroll that he had with him. She gave him all of his possessions. It's clear that, first of all, if she was just going to say that the guy left, she could keep all the possessions. All she has to do is say, "Oh, he got better and went home." So the fact that she said that he died and I buried him, we're going to believe her. So now the Gemara is going to ask, one second, what's the problem with this woman? Why shouldn't we believe her? Okay, so my griusa to Pundakis. What was the reason that we might not accept her? So Amarav Kahana Pundakis Obedes Kuchavim. She was not Jewish. That's like, it didn't say that in her Mishnah. Maybe it was implied. Maybe we all understood it. But that's the answer. She's not Jewish, and so that's why we need to. It needs to be Mesiach Lefi Tumo, that she needs to have spoken innocently. So Amarav Kahana. Pundakis, okay, so Mesiach and Mesicha, Umesicha Lefi Tumo Haisa, and she was just speaking innocently, right? Zemak lo, Bezet Tarmilo, Bezet Gever Kvartibo, and she said, "Here's his staff, here's his pouch, this is the grave where I buried him." So V'chein Tani Abba Braid the Rav Menume Barchia, and similarly Abba the son of Rav Menume from Barchia also taught in a brisa that explains our Mishnah in the similar way. He said, "Pundakis obedes kochavim haisa." She was a non-Jewish pundakis. Umesicha lefi tuma haisa, and again she was speaking innocently. Zeh maklo, v'zeh tarmilo, zeh v'kever shekvar tifo. Right? Here's all the things that are about him. So 1 second, v'ha ayecha v'reinu kamrilei. 1 second, hamrila. They said to her, "Where is our friend?" Well, once they say that to a person, if I tell somebody, "What did you do with my stuff?" Well, no longer is she actually being Mesiach Lefi Tumo. She's no longer speaking innocently. They are on some level accusing her. So as a result, she needs to defend herself. And if she's defending herself, she's no longer speaking innocently. The point of speaking innocently is to be speaking where she has nothing to gain and nothing to lose. But here now she has something to lose. So the Gemara explains, you're missing where we need to add a detail to our Mishnah. They saw that she was crying. And so the point is that the crying, and she's explaining her crying, happened before they asked her the question. And so as a result, because of that, we will believe her. So Amrullah, so then when they said to her, "What happened? Where's our friend?" So then she says, Amrullah Mesu Fartim. So then she said, I'm crying because he died and I had to bury him. So that's the story. So as a result, again, we'll believe a non-Jew. This is consistent with our, in fact, psak, and this is not only in connection with not only in connection with the woman's husband having died, but also in connection with kashrus as well, that in order to believe a non-Jew, it has to be Mesiach Lefi Tumo. They have to be speaking innocently. So, Tana Rabbanan. So now we're going to discuss the question of cross-examination, meaning do we have to, what kind of examination is required for this witness? So, Tana Rabbanan, so a person came to testify about for a woman to say that her husband had died. So Amrlo, so the guy said to him, Bini, how do you know that this woman's husband died? So Amar, he said the following amazing story. Anivahu hayinu holchin b'derech. Like we saw before, often these things happen while traveling. It's sort of like I think about the Disney movies. Things don't happen to people who have both parents taking care of them, etc. You have to get people on the traveling, etc. That's why you have all the movies about traveling, because that's when things happen. Exactly. And a group of soldiers were chasing after us. And so he goes and he grabbed an olive branch and he broke it off. And he fought off the soldiers and forced them to go away. Amartilo, wow, lion, you have such amazing strength. May your strength be confirmed. This is the line that we first say to people have an aliyah yashar koach. So that this is I don't know how frequently it happens in the Gemara, but here it is, yishar kochacha. That's in fact what we should be saying, yishar kochacha. So Amar Ali, he said to me, Minayin ata yodea sha'ar yeshmi. How do you know that my name, I guess my nickname really is Lion? Indeed, that's what they call me in my city. Yochanan beRebbi Yehonasan, Aryeh Mikfar Shichya. That my name is Yochanan, the son of Yehonasan, the lion of the village of Shichya. So Liyamim Chala Umes. But unfortunately, after some more time, when we were traveling together, he got sick and he died. So Vehesi Rabbi Tarfon Esishto. So Rabbi Tarfon allowed his wife to get married. So for Rabbi Tarfon, lo boy Drisha v'chakir. 1 second. Your story, that first story suggests that Rabbi Tarfon does not engage in Drisha v'chakira, in examination, in cross-examination and questioning of the witnesses. 1 second, but we have another story that says something similar, but in fact has a different ending. V'hatanya, ma'aseh ba'adam, or different middle. Ma'aseh ba'adam ma'achad sheba'al lifnei Rabbi Tarfon lahei leidusisha. There was a guy who came and testified before about a particular woman in front of Rabbi Tarfon. Amrlo, B'ni, heikata yodea edusu. How did you know this? Amrli, ani v'ho hainu holchem b'dero v'radav achoreinu gaius v'natla b'yichud te'ena ufshacho v'hakazir esagayis lacharav. So same story, only difference is that the guy, instead of breaking off an olive branch, broke off a fig branch. But the bottom line is same exact story. He fights off the guys. Amartilo, Yishar Kochacha Arye, you should koach my lion. Amar Ali, Yafa Kavanta Lishmi. Wow, you somehow figured out my name. That's amazing. Shikak Korinosi Be'iri, that's exactly what people call me in my city. Yochanan ben Yonasan Arye Mikfar Shichya. And then a few days, at some point later, he got sick and he died. So Amar Lo, after the witness finished testifying, Rabbi Tarfon says to him, Lo kaka martili Yochanan ben Yonasan de Mikfar Shichya Aryeh. Did you say to me that his name was Yochanan, the son of Yonasan, from the village of Shichya Aryeh? Meaning, were you saying that his nickname was Aryeh, or was the name of his town Aryeh? Well, I don't understand. So Amar Lay, no, I didn't say that the name of his village was Aryeh. I said Elakach Amar Dilacha. Yochanan ben Yonasan Aryeh de Mikfar Shichya. And he repeats the same thing, meaning, what did Rabbi Tarfon try to do? He tried to trick him up to say, were you saying, did he say his name had Aryeh at the end, or Aryeh in the middle, or was the village named Aryeh, etc., trying to go back and forth to see whether or not he could confuse him. And of course, the witness was not confusable. And so as a result, the diktik alav shnayim u'shlosha pamim, he did it 2 or 3 more times. The kivin is tvarav. And since all his statements were straight, and consistent, the Hisi Rabbi Tarfon as Ishto. So Rabbi Tarfon allowed the wife to remarry. So we have 2 stories. Clearly, the Gemara, I believe, thinks that these are the same story. I mean, they got the same guy's name, right? Same name in both the stories. So I think this is still the same story. The question is now we have 2 stories, one with Drisha v'chakira and one without Drisha v'chakira. So do we need? So Tanaihi. In fact, we say that it's a machlokas Tanaim. To Tanya, ein bodkin ad ede nashim b'Drisha v'chakira. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says we don't actually engage in cross-examination and questioning. Rabbi Tarfon Omer bodkin, and Rabbi Tarfon says we do. Now, some people change this Rabbi Tarfon to say somebody that is referring to somebody else, because our brisa was 2 different Rabbi Tarfon. But you can even say the point is that there was a machlokas within Rabbi Tarfon. There's a disagreement about what Rabbi Tarfon said. Did Rabbi Tarfon actually say like Rabbi Akiva, or did he say, as we have here in this other brisa, that in fact we do Drisha v'chakira, that we do some checking? So the kamiflagi with the Rabbi Chanina, and all of this is the disagreement about whether we do Drisha v'chakira with respect to a woman's husband having died, with respect to that testimony. That is all a disagreement about that relates to Rabbi, or something that's taught by Rabbi Chanina. To Amar Rabbi Chanina, Dvar Torah.
One witness. If there were 2 witnesses, we wouldn't do Drisha v'chakira.
Oh, no. This is a broader rule. Thank you for mentioning. This is definitely intended to be a broader rule. We would do, the question is do we apply the general rule of Drisha v'Chakira that exists in general court cases to this unique situation where we even accept one witness? That's an excellent point. And I will try to explicate it even further as we teach Rabbi Chanina's teaching. So the Kamif will give you the Rabbi Chanina. So Rabbi Chanina taught, and this disagreement is going to relate to his teaching. The Amar Rabbi Chanina, Dvar Torah, Echadine Mamas, the Echadine Nefashos, Bedrisha B'Chakira. Doesn't make a difference what kind of case. If it's a life and death case, a criminal kind of case with life and death on the line, or is it a case with money on the line? Either way, when we hear testimony from witnesses, we go through Drisha v'Chakira, and we make sure that the witnesses know what they're talking about. Shenemar mishpat echad yelachem. At the end of Sefer Vayikra, we have the rule that says that there should be one law for you, and so we're going to have one law for capital cases and monetary cases. Umatam amru. And so 1 second, why did the rabbis disagree with him? Because the rabbis say no. Only, doesn't say it here, but that's the implication. The rabbis say no. Only for life and death cases do we have Drisha v'Chakira, but not for monetary cases, not for civil cases. So my time amru dine mamonos ain't srichan Drisha v'Chakira. Why is it that the rabbis say you don't need it? Shelo tino delis b'fnei logan. Because if I know that every time I lend money, the witnesses that I get are going to go through a Drisha v'Chakira, nobody's going to want to be a witness to my lending you money. And so as a result, I'm not going to want to lend you money. And so as a result, you're not going to get to borrow the money, but you need the money. And there's a special mitzvah for me. So we're going to try and create an environment that makes it as easy as possible for you to borrow money. So now that we've got this disagreement between the Chachamim and Rabbi Chanina, so what's our machlokas about in the case of the wife and the testimony here? So the Tanoim are arguing about Marsav, and so everybody understands that we actually hold like the rabbis, meaning we don't hold like Rabbi Chanina, we hold like the rabbis, meaning that in a monetary case, we will not do Drisha v'Chakira, but in a death penalty case, we will do Drisha v'Chakira. All right, we'll do the cross-examination, exactly. So what is the argument in our situation? So Mar Savar, Kavan de Ikaksuva Lemishgal, Kadine Mamonostami. So the one who says you don't need to do Drisha v'Chakira says that what is the wife going to be entitled to immediately once we say that the husband has died? She's entitled to her money. So this is a monetary case. So as a result, we're going to allow, we're not going to require Drisha v'Chakira. On the other hand, Umar Sabar Kavan de Kasharin and Ashes Ish La Alma Gedine Nefashos Dami. Because what's the penalty if a wife sleeps around? The penalty is a death penalty. So as a result, we're effectively, even though there's no death involved in our situation, it's a death-related case, so we're going to call it as if it's like a capital situation. And so as a result, we're going to require Drisha v'Chakira as well. So that's the machlokas. My understanding is that I don't think that we do Drisha v'Chakira, but I'm not 100% sure. But in any event, the bottom line is that that's the machlokas about whether we do Drisha v'Chakira in connection with the somebody testifying about the husband died. And so now we conclude Maseches Yevamot with the same language that we have in 3 other places. We have this in Brachos, which we've already learned together, though not with me, but Nazir, Yevamot, which we were about to do, and Krisos. And the interesting thing is that if you spell that out, it's Bet Nun Yud Chaf, which is Banayach, which is what this is going to be. And you'll actually recognize this because in the Ein Kelokenu tefillah that we say after Ein Kelokenu every Shabbos, so this language is from that. So Amar Rabbi Lazar, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Talmidei Chachamim Marbim Shalom Ba'olam. And the note here suggests that the reason that we're putting this here is that what have we done in the last bit? The rabbis have said we're concerned about agunot, and we are going to accept a testimony from one witness, even though the Torah ordinarily says that you need 2. And so we're going to allow that. And so the rabbis are trying to create peace in the world to enable as much as women to be able to get remarried. And so as a result, Talmidei Chachamim Marbe Shalom Bo. So this is the rabbis, Torah scholars increase peace in the world. Shnei Amar, V'chol banayak lemudei Hashem, v'rav shalom banayak. So that all your sons will be disciples of Hashem, and abundant will be the peace of your sons. Now, the Masoros Hashas points out that that's not the end in Maseches Brachos, and indeed is not the way we say it in our tefillah. We say Al Tikra Banaya Ela Bonaya, that don't refer to the people who are your sons, but rather your builders, and that refers to the Talmidei Chacham, that the people who are Torah scholars, they are the builders in this world. They are the ones who construct. And so as we finish Maseches Yevamos, that we too hopefully are considered part of those builders. And Hadron Alach Ha'isha Basra, Hadron Alach Ha'isha Basra, Hadron Alach Ha'isha Basra, Masalika Lamaseches Yevamos, and we should be able to come back. Yevamos is done, but God willing, we'll be able to come back to it. And indeed, I look forward to seeing everyone at the Siyum, God willing, this evening at 7:15. Have a wonderful day, and God willing, tomorrow we begin Maseches Kesubos. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you again, as always.
All right, have a great day.
You too.